If you're looking for a no BS seed starting mix, you're at the right place. Today's episode is going to be all about creating the most inexpensive DIY seed starting mix that money can buy. Let's go. When it comes to seed starting mixes, I understand that there's a lot of variety out there. As a beginning gardener myself, when I first started gardening, it was super overwhelming. Not to mention, fast forward 15 years later, there's even more variety than there's ever been before. And I know that there's a low price point, a medium price point, and a high price point for everything. And amongst those, there are 15, 20 different options for you to choose from and 15 to 20 different prices, but all of the options kind of claim the same thing. They all claim to be ideal for seed starting. And so as a beginning gardener, you look at the low price point and you say, yeah, but you kind of get what you pay for. I don't want poor results. So maybe I want the best results. And at the most expensive spectrum, maybe it's the best, and that's why they're charging the most for it. And that's not always the case either. So maybe I shoot middle of the road. And it's just this guessing game. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna demystify and essentially give you a no BS approach to making your own seed starting mix if you wanna make it, because I'm gonna give you all of the essentials that need to be included in a good seed starting mix. Now, I will say that you do not have to make your own. You can go buy your own. We use two. I'll give you two options that we go with. Not sponsored. They're just what we use here on the channel. If you are not making a lot, I'll show you the two, or I'll talk about the two that we use here on the channel, but they are not cost effective if you are doing large quantities. They can be very, very expensive, and you can make your own really inexpensively if you're doing large quantities. For small seed starting, for one or two little garden beds, and you only want 15, 20 plants to start, you're probably gonna wanna just go out and buy yourself a bag of seed starting mix that's pre-made. Happy Frog by Fox Farm is a great brand, really high quality. It's gonna be a little more on the expensive end, but it's awesome. We also use ProMix. ProMix is what we personally use, and you're gonna pay a lot for it, but it gives you incredible professional results, and it's already pre-made. So those are two options that we use, but if you really wanna save a ton of money, you have to make it yourself. And there's a few things that you need to know to making it yourself, where if this bag right here, this bag was $15. That is, in my opinion, kind of crazy, but it gives you good results if you want good results. A bag of ProMix is gonna cost you 20, 25 bucks. Pretty pricey, I know. It's very, very expensive, but you can make your own, and you can make a decent amount of it. For the same amount, you can probably make your own for $3 to $5. Really inexpensive for really great results. You just have to commit to making a lot of it because it requires a few different ingredients you're gonna need to buy. So the first component that makes up every seed starting mix is going to be your main growing medium. It's your main kind of filler in the mix. That can be either coconut husk fiber, coco coir, sphagnum peat moss, or compost, or any combination of the three. Now we're gonna be using some coconut husk fiber. I just took the shovel here and I just kind of broke off a little wedge of it. It's compressed coconut husk, and it is a really great texture. It gives you a nice fluffy growing medium to grow in. And if you get a high quality, like we're using MIgardener's Loco Coco Coir for this, it's going to be pre-rinsed, so there's no salt content. It's pretty easy to use. I personally love it. You could also go with sphagnum peat moss. We've used that in the past and have had great success with it. Only thing is it's going to be rather acidic, and you need to treat it with a little bit of dolomitic lime. So that's another thing you'd have to buy if you went with sphagnum peat moss. However, sphagnum peat moss or coco coir are kind of the two most common, simply because if you incorporate compost into your seed starting, you invite things like fungus gnats, and you invite other mold and mildew spores that can come in on the compost. Whereas this stuff right here is really inert. There's very little nutrients, which we'll talk about that in a second. There's very little risk of pests or disease coming in, mold and mildews, because it's so dry and compressed. Now, the second thing that makes up a good seed starting mix, as I'm just hydrating this, like this is like just literally just going right into the water, and it's just becoming this beautiful seed starting mix here. The second thing that you're going to want to add is some type of porosity, some type of aeration. And that comes in the form of perlite. Now, perlite is an expanded volcanic rock. You're going to find it in the highest quality seed starting mixes. Your lower quality seed starting mixes probably will not have very much, if any, perlite, simply because It's kind of a costly additive. We want, for the ideal ratio, we want about 10 to 15% perlite content in our mix. That's kind of the sweet spot. So I'm gonna add a little bit more to absorb some of that water, because right now it's fully absorbed. We still have quite a bit of standing water here. So I'm gonna get this all absorbed. We're gonna add our perlite. That's gonna add airiness. This does not hold on to water. This is not styrofoam. Again, it's just an expanded volcanic rock. We're gonna add that, and it is very, very dusty. So make sure you do it slowly and pre-moisten it. So we just got all that perlite incorporated in here. That's going to give us that spongy, beautiful, fluffy texture. It's gonna prevent compaction, and it's also going to help the roots just be able to penetrate through the soil better. It's gonna help water to drain through the soil better, because in a seed starting mix, what you don't want is you don't want large air gaps. Air gaps will actually damage new root development. They will actually actively avoid those air gaps. So the less air gaps you have, large air gaps, the better. But also, it's going to help excess water to drain through, because you don't want to encounter things like damping off, which occur when you put your seeds in an environment where it stays damp for a long period of time. Basically, it's essentially a bacterium that grows in the soil. It's found in the soil, and if it's exposed to the right conditions, which is slightly cool and overly damp conditions, it'll actually eat away the tissue, the live plant tissue on the roots of the seedlings. And then what will happen is it will just fall right over. And that's why they call it damping off. And so what you want to do is have some perlite in there, which will help to increase drainage. I would not recommend using sand, simply because sand is very dense and it does not actually drain quite as well as a nice, loose, fluffy perlite. Now, you're also going to want to add something like vermiculite. The highest quality potting mixes and seed starting mixes are going to have vermiculite. It's also an expanded volcanic rock. However, it's expanded so that it actually is porous. This is actually going to uptake water and hold on to water. It's also going to house nutrients and minerals. It's going to absorb those in and lock onto them so they don't drain through your soil. It's very important to add about 10 to 15% of your overall mix as vermiculite. So we're going to add that as well. Again, dry, so make sure you do it rather slowly. Incorporate it. If you pre-moisten it, it helps to kind of knock down that dust. We're gonna mix that up as well. And this is such a small batch. Typically, we'd be hydrating this entire block. We'd be making a ton of it, and that would make almost like a whole wheelbarrow full. You're not going to buy a whole wheelbarrow full of Pro Mix for less than this, I guarantee you that. This block right here, this is like $15, $20. The fertilizer we're gonna talk about, that's like 10 bucks. And the perlite and the vermiculite, that's gonna cost you like $5 to $7. You're going to make this whole batch, a whole wheelbarrow full, for like half the cost of a single bale of Pro Mix. So it just has to do with how many seeds you're starting. Now the next thing that all of these seed starting mixes are going to be missing and they will need is some type of fertilizer. And since you're making your own, you have the opportunity to add it right into the seed starting mix, whereas a lot of the other bag mixes, they don't have any at all. So if you're going to be adding nutrients, I suggest adding nutrients right into the seed starting mix. The reason why is you hear a lot of people say, well, you don't need to add fertilizer right away. The seeds don't uptake nutrients right away. And that's true. When the seeds are still in what's called their cotyledon phase, that is where they are just sprouting and they are still using the energy found in their seed leaves. Those are the first leaves that form as soon as they sprout. Those are their seed leaves. They aren't uptaking any nutrients at all. But what happens when they pass that phase? Then they need nutrients. And so we add nutrients in small quantities so that when they do need nutrients, they can uptake it and start to grow. So you can use something like worm castings as a very gentle fertilizer. You're going to find worm castings in something like your Fox Farm blends. Those a lot have worm castings. This one right here, this Happy Frog does have worm castings in it. Fox Farm does have earthworm castings. So on your more premium blends, you're going to have earthworm castings. It's not a necessity. It's just a nice bonus because earthworm castings provides a ton of beneficial bacteria from the gut microbiome of the worm, and as well as providing nutrients from them breaking down that organic material. And then you could add something like an all-purpose fertilizer as well. We're gonna use Trifecta. You could use whatever you have on hand. Just a nice all-purpose slow-release fertilizer. Add some of that in there. I think half a cup or so will do for this much that I'm making. And so all in all, we've added, I don't know, I mean, again, you have to calculate the bag cost. This might cost you like $6, $7, but you used a handful of it. So you might have used 50 cents. You might have used, this was $11. you might have used $1, if that. So we're at $1.50. I used like 1/10. I used like 1/10 of this block, maybe not even 10% of this block. This was $20. I used like $2 worth. So we're at $3.50 so far. And then in terms of the amount of materials that I used for the vermiculite and the perlite, I probably used, let's just say 50 cents total. I mean, I barely used that. So we're like right around $5, let's say. $5 for a wash tub full of seed starting mix. And we've hardly dented our overall ingredients. And that's about as much as you're getting from this $15 bag of Happy Frog right here. So 15 versus 5. It's kind of a no-brainer. And again, you have a bunch of ingredients left over. So yes, it's expensive. It absolutely is expensive to buy all these ingredients. It's just like cooking. You know, you might not need a little jar of hoisin sauce for that Chinese recipe. The recipe tastes better with it, but you still gotta buy it just because you need like 1 teaspoon. So the idea is to find other recipes that need hoisin sauce so that you don't waste it. Because otherwise that $5 bottle of hoisin sauce ends up getting wasted for 1 recipe. You need to buy all these to make your seed starting mix, but assuming you keep making it, it's going to be worlds cheaper. I mean, 3 to 4, 5 times cheaper than going out and buying it, and you have a really premium seed starting mix. And that is the only thing that you need to know. This is seed starting mix demystified. This is a no BS seed starting mix where you are going to have great results. I guarantee it. You can go with a store-bought and have great results as well, but again, you're gonna spend money for it. The final thing that I will address is the grade of perlite and vermiculite. There are different grades. For a seed starting mix, because I realized I forgot that, you're going to have a extra fine, a fine, a medium, and a coarse grade for perlite and vermiculite. For my seed starting mixes, I try to go with a fine to a medium grade. Fine to medium. If you go with extra fine, it is microscopic, it is extremely dusty, and typically those are used in things like filters. If you have like a filter on your pool, that's going to be an extra fine. It's got a lot of surface area, works really well. Different industries use vermiculite and perlite, but in the gardening industry, I typically say don't go any lower than fine up to about a medium grade. It's going to give you a good fluffy texture, great moisture holding capabilities, great aeration. The plants, the roots are going to love this, absolutely love this. It's got nutrients to grow. I'll tell you what, your plants are going to leap from this for pennies. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you make your own seed starting mix, let me know in the comments box down below what your recipe is. I'm sure everyone else would love to know as well. So until next time, catch you guys all later on the next episode. And as always, grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.